has been a very serious endeavor for my students. They were assigned, each of them, the task of finding someone that they wanted to study, which was already a task because they had to pick up a few rocks and say, not that one. And then they had to read a substantial book about each of their subjects. I said, you may not go online and just go right to whatever sources you can find online. You have to first read an entire meaty book about this person. And then if you have supplementary questions, we can filter those through online sources. And so after they had done their book reading, they each wrote an approximately 5-page paper on this subject, and most of them, or some of them are still in progress, but they all did a drawing of their person. And from that, they generated these slideshows. The words that you see in these slideshows are their words that came from their papers that they wrote. Yeah.
Hello, good morning. As you already know, my name is Grayson, and the person that I chose to write a biography on was Audrey Hepburn. Can you do this for me? Yeah. Okay. Beauty is being the best possible version of yourself, inside and out. Those were the words spoken by one of the most influential and iconic actresses and symbols of Hollywood in the mid to late 1900s. Well, hold on. Okay. Okay. This is little itty bitty Audrey Hepburn with her mother, Ella Van Heemstra. Born in Brussels, Belgium, on May 4th, 1929, to a British father, Joseph Victor Anthony Rustin, and a Dutch mother who was actually a baroness, Ella Van Heemstra. And actually a lot of biographies written about her will state that she was born Etta Kathleen Hepburn Rustin, and that later in her life she actually changed her name to Audrey, which is not true. Her son, Sean Hepburn Fair, who wrote the book that I actually referenced this off of, Audrey Hepburn, An Elegant Spirit, who's her son, I already said that, has a clear and legal birth certificate saying that she was born with the name Audrey Kathleen Rustin. After the war, her father found documents from his ancestors who possessed the name Hepburn. That was when Joseph added it to his last name to change his last name from Rustin to Hepburn. So then they changed Audrey's last name to Hepburn. So Audrey's mother temporarily changed Audrey's name from Audrey to Etta during the war because they were English. Yes, they're English. And this was during it because they lived in England. And a lot of people were assuming that the Nazis were gonna invade England next. So they actually moved to Holland, which was Nazi occupied. So they thought that Audrey, the name Audrey, was too much of a given that she was English and she was British. So they changed it to Etta temporarily. Okay, you can change it. This was Audrey when she was probably about 8 or 9 years old. During the war, she was extremely malnourished because obviously there was no food and stuff. And she spent most of her time in her bed, laying down and reading and stuff because laying down was the only way to actually stop the pain from being so hungry. Okay, gonna go to the next one. Okay, Audrey loved animals so much, and she also really, really always had a very kind heart and a lot of compassion for children as well. And she actually said that she used to take babies out of little shopping carts and out of their strollers when she was younger because at the shopping marts and stuff, just to embarrass her mom because she just loved kids that much. And that ended up definitely, what's the word? Oh my gosh. Contributed to a lot of her, in her future. Okay, you can go to the next one. Okay, so Audrey's dream profession ever was to become a prima ballerina. And she studied at a ballet art school with Marie Rambert, who was taught by Nijinsky. And but unfortunately, during the malnutrition from the war, it stunted her bone and muscle development. So she was never actually fully, truly able to create the life that she wanted being a prima ballerina. She was also 5'7", which is not that tall, but she would have been too tall or heavy, mostly tall, for any male ballet dancer of the time to lift. Okay, you can go to the next one. Marie Rambert, which I never actually changed the slide, so the Marie Rambert slide should be here, but it's okay. Marie was one of her very close friends, and Marie actually said, "Hey, I think you're very beautiful and you're very talented, and you would actually do way better being a model or an actress rather than a ballet dancer." So she actually went on to act as Chiquita in the Lavender Hill Mob and Nora Brentano in The Secret People as just 2 small roles. And you can flip it. And that's Marie Rambert. Okay, next. So when Audrey was playing as Linda Farrell in Monte Carlo Baby, this was in, I think, France when she was filming it, the French writer Colette actually was thinking about making a play or a film for her book, Gigi, and Colette actually saw Audrey in the street and said, "Oh, I have found Gigi." So, you can go ahead. And this was Audrey when she was starring in Gigi, a play by Colette, after she was spotted on the set of Monte Carlo Baby, and this was in 1951. And then that was also a really overnight success because everybody really loved that film and play. And she went with Fred Astaire in Funny Face. You can skip it. And then in 1953, she was cast in Roman Holiday alongside Gregory Peck, which was a huge overnight success, and that was definitely what more so skyrocketed her into being so famous. She was also very, very close friends with, I don't know how to say his name. Yes, Givenchy, but he's Hubert or something. I don't know. She was very close friends with him, and he actually styled all of her outfits for Sabrina, which she filmed in 1954. You can skip it. And then this was Audrey in Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think she was also styled with Givenchy in this one as well. I don't fully know, but I'm pretty sure. This is in 1961. Okay. When Audrey was filming Green Mansions, which was another one of her movies, the producer was Mel Ferrer, and he actually became her husband, and they had one son together who wrote this book. Okay, so when she was on the set of Green Mansions, her character actually had a pet fawn. So the trainer was like, "Hey, Audrey, you should bring it home. You should bring the fawn home, and you can kind of keep her as a pet." So she actually named her Pippin, and she really loved Pippin. Okay, next. This was Audrey and her firstborn son, Sean Hepburn Farrer, and he was born in 1960. And then Audrey went in to star in My Fair Lady in 1964. And actually, I don't remember, I didn't add this, when her and Mel Ferrer actually got divorced, but I think they just had different ideas for how they wanted their lives to be. I think, actually yes, they got divorced in 1968, and in December of 1968, she met Andrea Doty on a yacht party with her friends, and they met in December and they got married in June of 1969. And then that is Audrey and her second son, Luca Doty, born in 1970. So Audrey actually divorced Andrea Doty as well, I think right before was a couple years after, just because, again, they had different lifestyles and they just wanted different things. But they remained like close friends afterwards. And again, when Audrey was so malnourished from the war and everything, she had such a soft heart for children, and she actually went to work with UNICEF, which started in 1988, which is something that she embraced until her passing. And she always just really had a very soft and kind heart for children that were less privileged. So, and then those are just pictures of her. You can skip it. And that's all. Thank you.
And I did my project on Jan Reynolds. So this is a quote from her: "Your life is what you make it, and the world is what it means to you." She actually wrote this when she was 12. She had a school assignment, and she just thought of this and wrote it down. And she carried it with her on all of her expeditions and all of her biathlons and stuff. She grew up on a dairy farm in Middlebury, Vermont, which is in the countryside. She had 6 siblings, and when she was little, they would have her get into a tire, and they would roll her down a hill until she fell off. So she grew up with kind of a rough family, so she wasn't really afraid of roughhousing. In high school, she called herself a musclehead because she took soccer, track and field, Nordic, and cross country. And when she went to university, she went an hour away from her home to the University of Vermont, and eventually led her ski team to a national win, I think. And during, after she won, she asked someone that she met named Ned to teach ski lessons at the Trapp Family Lodge. And eventually she got invited to go to New Zealand to ski in the Alps. So this is her on her first expedition. Originally, when Ned asked her to go, she said no, and because she was afraid that if she did anything wrong, they would think why did we bring her? Why did we bring a girl on this trip? But they eventually bugged her so much that she said yes. It started in, I don't remember when it started. 1979. And what was supposed to take them a week actually took them a month. So there were a couple times where they had to split their food and camp out because of snowstorms. This is her leading Ned. They were always teamed up together because they were dating at the time. And the 2 other men on the trip kind of didn't really ever think about teaming up with her because she was a girl. This is her on Mustagata, I think, in China, where she broke the women's high altitude skiing record in 1980 by skiing 25,000 feet of elevation. So that was a very tall mountain. 1 year later, after her second expedition in China, they went to Everest and made a full circle. But so instead of going up to the top and then coming down the other way, since it split in between 2 different countries, both of the countries didn't want someone coming from one country to the other because they were afraid of spies. So instead, they kind of bent the rules a little bit, and they went halfway around on one side, then flew around the world to the other side and made the other half circle so that they could complete a full circle. So that was her and Ned again. And it took them a year. This is her with one of her Sherpa leaders in the second half of the circle, and he managed to find them after 5 days without food, which honestly for them that wasn't that weird because it happened a lot and they got lost a lot. But this is one of the guys that found them. She got into biathlons after a few of her expeditions, which is basically where you ski a couple miles, and then you use a rifle and shoot at targets, and then you skate for a little bit. And this is her with her rifle, Sweetie. The first time she tried to do a biathlon, at the last part, her ankles kind of went out, so she had to get taken off by a wheelchair. But she trained a bunch and eventually finished in the top 5 with a bunch of the guys, which was a pretty big deal for her. She wrote a book called The Glass Summit, which is actually technically the book that I read, but it was originally called High Altitude Woman. She changed the title and the cover because she didn't actually get a chance to choose, because the publishers chose for her, and they made the subtitle pretty long so that like the more it will come up more with different words that you search. And she didn't really feel like it. She felt like it kind of said that she was the only high altitude skier when she really wasn't, who was a girl. So she changed it to the Glass Summit, referring to the phrase the glass ceiling, which is like the limit that women can't, like if they try to do the same thing as men, they can't get as high, because, yeah. One of her favorite things about all of her expeditions was all the tribes and the people like at the base of the mountains that she would get to connect with. So eventually she turned her attention to like native cultures and like that kind of thing. And she wrote a series, and this is all the places that she explored in that series, and it's called Vanishing Cultures. And these are all the books. She went to, let's see, the Himalayas, the Sahara Desert, Finland, Australia, Amazon Basin, Inuit, and Mongolia. And she wrote a bunch of children's books about them so that kids can get more like informed about the cultures in different parts of the world. At one point, I don't remember when, but she decided to cross the Nang Pala, which is near Everest in the Himalayas, and there's a lot of Sherpas and like yak herders and that kind of thing who she connected with. And at one point, her backpack got stolen, and it had, I think, $12,000 worth of gear and food. So she instead of thinking of it as like, oh, my stuff got stolen, she thought of it as she was living like a Sherpa, and like only the clothes that were on her back and the food from the community around her and the land. She's now in the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame and also in the Athletic Hall of Fame at her university. She got put in the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame in 2023 and her University Athletic Hall of Fame in 1990. This is another quote from the book I read. "This is not the mountain you saw yesterday. It is the mountain it is today only." So she was looking up at Everest and like all the smaller mountains around it and thinking about how because of like tectonic plates and like all that stuff, they shift every day. So it's never the same mountain. You're never climbing the same mountain. She now has 2 boys named Briggs and Story, and she's 69 years old and still lives in Vermont. I actually emailed her because she's the only living biography project, but I emailed her and she told me that the main thing she wants young readers, or any reader really, to get out of her books is she wants to be the voice in every girl's ear saying you are stronger than you think and you can go for it no matter what it is. That's it.
Okay, so I'm Sylvia, and I did my presentation, or my biography, on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the book I read is called Notorious RBG, and I thought it was very interesting. So, okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1933. She was born into a Jewish family, and she had one sister, but unfortunately her sister died at age 8 from meningitis. At age 13, her mom got diagnosed with cancer. hang on, what kind of cancer? I forgot. Cervical cancer. So Ruth was trying to think of like ways to make her happy. And so she decided to start doing her homework by her mom's bed because her mom was always very, like, she really wanted her to get good grades and do very well in school and to succeed in life. So in school, Ruth had like a very good reputation of being a good student and being very kind. And so she went to James Madison High School and graduated there in 1950. And right before her graduation, her mother passed away. So this made Ruth like even more determined to do well in life. And it's like one of the reasons why I pushed her to, you know, do what she did. Okay. And after she graduated high school, she attended Cornell University, which her mother had had a dream of going to herself, but she gave up her spot so her brother could go instead. So she saved up $8,000 for Ruth's tuition to go there, but Ruth ended up getting a full scholarship to go there. She studied an arts degree in government and received a bachelor degree, and she graduated from there in 1954, and she was like one of the top of her class. Okay, while she went to Cornell, she met Martin D. Ginsburg on a blind date, which would later become her husband. And she stated later that Marty was the first boy who ever cared that she had like brains and like could think, and Marty truly believed that a woman's work was just as important as a man's work. And he really supported what she did. So Ruth and Marty got engaged in 1954 while they still attended Cornell, and they married just days later after graduating. They had their wedding in the Ginsburg living room with 19 like loved ones there, because in the Jewish religion that's like the number symbolizing life and love. And so, yeah. And after they married, Marty and Ruth moved to Lawton, Oklahoma, because Marty was drafted and stationed there for the military. And they lived there for 2 years, and Ruth almost got hired as a Social Security office, but was refused because of gender discrimination, and she was also pregnant with her first child. So Ruth had to find a lower ranked job as a law firm secretary. In 1955, Ruth had her first child, Jane, while they were still in Oklahoma. But Marty was released from the military, so they moved to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they both began to study at Harvard Law School. Marty was finishing his last 2 years, and Ruth was beginning her law degree. In 1965, Ruth had her second child, James. This was a really hard time for the family because Marty was diagnosed with cancer and became really weak. So Ruth was attending Marty's classes for him and helping him write papers while he dictated them, and yes. So he would regularly fall asleep around 2 a.m. and that's when Ruth would start her own work. So she was regularly going to sleep and only getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And she also had, toddlers and kids. So Marty began treatment for his cancer and became a lot stronger. So, yes, I think they moved or something. And so Ruth had to transfer to Columbia Law School. What?
Marty took up his practice.
Oh, okay. Yes, Marty took up his practice, so they had to move, and so Ruth had to transfer to Columbia Law School, and she finished her LLB, and she graduated there in 1959, again being one of the top in her class. Okay, so after graduating, Ruth began looking for jobs, but was turned down by a lot of jobs because she was a woman, a mother, or Jewish, and she ended up getting a job as a clerk for New York Judge Edmund L. Palmieri. Ruth studied Swedish law and was hired to be the first woman tenure at Columbia, and she was teaching gender discrimination courses. In 1963, Ruth became a professor of law at Rutgers University and taught there until 1972. She also became involved in the Civil Rights Union in the late 1960s until 1980. Throughout that time, she represented 6 different cases and won 5 of them, and she was involved in 28 others. Okay, in 1980, Ruth was appointed by President Jimmy Carter to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia to serve as a appellate judge, and she held that position until 1993. She was then nominated on June 4th, 1993, by President Bill Clinton to take over for Brian White's Supreme Court seat. Not even 2 months later, she was, on August 3rd, Ruth was confirmed a Supreme Court justice. The Senate voted, and the results were 96 against 3. So in 1996, the Supreme Court ruled that the vendor-managed inventory exclusion of women was a violation of the 14th Amendment's equal protection and commanded open admittance for women. In 1999, she was 66 years old and was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer. So she took forward a surgery, and by 2000, she was cancer-free. She continued to serve as a Supreme Court justice and covered many cases, and in 2002 became a part of National Women's Hall of Fame. In 2009, Ruth got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and had 3 different series of it, but was finally completely cured of it in 2019. In 2010, June 27th, Marty died of cancer at age 78. Despite this tragedy, Ruth still continued to serve as a Supreme Court justice. Okay, in 2020, Ruth's pancreatic cancer came back, and by September 18th, she died at age 87. Ruth's devotion and primary object in life was by far fulfilled and outstanding. She overcame gender discrimination and pursued her passions. Ruth had many triumphs and victories in her life, such as helping pass laws for benefits for women, Equal Credit Opportunity Act, birthright options, dissent in the presidential election case, fair pay, affirming rights for people with disabilities, and her dissent against destroying the Votes Against Rights Act gallivantsed a new generation, and unifying the liberal bloc of the court. She earned the name Notorious RBG for a reputation of a fierce and courageous hero for rights of equality for all. She also died as a Supreme Court justice. That's my presentation. That's one of her, I forgot about this. This is one of her quotes, and I'm sometimes asks, when will there be enough? And my answer is, when there are 9. People are shocked, but there'd be 9 men, and nobody's ever raised a question about that. So to me, that means, like, if there's 9 men, then there's no question asked. So when there's 9 women and there's no question asked, that's when it'll be equal.
I think people need to know who the 9 are. The 9 what?
I don't know.
Supreme Court
Justices. Okay. That's it.
Albert Einstein, a theoretical scientist. Theoretical scientists, what they do is I have the information of what a theoretical scientist does. A theoretical physicist uses mathematical models and abstract concepts to explain, predict, and understand the fundamental laws of the universe, working to develop theories about matter, energy, space, and time, often exploring realms beyond current experimental reach, like the cosmos or subatomic worlds, by using advanced math, simulations, and collaborating with experimental physicists to test their ideas. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. This right here is just bonus, if you want to read it. This is him and his sister.
So Jack, we can't read that, so you have to tell us what it is.
He's currently age 5, and his sister Maja. Maja was age 3. And then this is him at age 16.
Jack, can you tell us a little bit about his childhood?
He had a big head, and he didn't speak until he was 4.
And what did he say when he first spoke?
He was complaining about his food.
And when they asked him, why didn't you speak before, he said,
Because it didn't feel necessary. And then this is when a photographer asked Albert Einstein if he could smile for a picture, and he stuck his tongue out. And this was his 72nd birthday on March 14th, 1951. And I also have when he died. It's not in the slideshow, but that's it. If you want, you can ask questions. Yes?
How old did his parents live?
I did not research that. Yes?
Who were his parents?
I did not research that.
Jack, where was he born? Where was he from?
Okay, that I did research. He was born in Ulm in the kingdom of Württemberg, Germany. It has the U with the 2 dots above it, so it makes the sound. Yes.
What were some of his discoveries?
The theory of general relativity, being E equals mc squared. Yes.
Did he live to age 72 or did he live longer?
I know I have this in one of the 2 docs, but I don't remember where.
Into his 80s, I think.
He lived after his son and his wife and his, I think, grandchildren left. He died in the middle of the night on April 18th, 1955. Yes?
Do you have like a favorite thing that he did or a quote by him that you find like something that you should live by?
Well, I know he made a fridge. And it's very, but the main thing I think is neat about him is that he's a pacifist. Yes?
is there any reason why you chose him, like in particular?
I just thought he would be cool. Yes.
Well, who was his wife and child?
He had multiple children, being 2 children, and he had 2 wives. He divorced one, then he married another. The second one would be his cousin. I have no idea how that works, trust me. Yes.
Yeah, did you read or learn anything about his experience with the war and the Nazi government? Because he was a scientist and they were trying to make destructive weapons with science. Did you read anything about that?
Yes, he did. It was in the book, which you may have forgotten.
Yeah. I forgot it, so. Anyone else?
My name is Emmy, and for my biography project, I did Julia Child. This is the book I read, Julie and Julia, My Years of Cooking Dangerously, by Julia Powell. Who is she? Julia is an award-winning chef, author, and television star. She was born August 15th, 1912 in Pasadena, California. She grew up to like a pretty wealthy family, so she didn't have like any troubles with that. And she didn't, like, she hated inside and like working in kitchens and stuff like that. She's like really into sports and outdoors. And she's like super tall, so that kind of gave her an advantage.
How tall was she?
6'2". She is best known for bringing French food into American culture, because at that time American food was like all canned and like bland, and it wasn't very good. So she had a big role in that. She had a famous television show called The French Chef and Mastering the Arts of French Cooking. Her childhood, Julia was always a very like vibrant, fun, cheerful like person, and she was always like very happy, and it also showed in her baby pictures. So like people really remembered her by that. That's like one of the reasons people adored her so much. Her maiden name is Julia McWilliams, and she is the oldest of 3 children. Oh, fun facts about her. She was a spy, so after getting fired from her job as a store manager for insubordination, she applied for a job in 1941 as an OSS, Office of Strategic Services, and worked there for about 3 years. This is also where she met her husband Paul, but we'll get to him later. She was a basketball player, so since she's like super tall, she had like a good advantage in sports and stuff, and one of them was basketball. So she always stood out and stuff, and because she's like a lot taller than most her teammates, and that's a yearbook photo of her. She used 753 pounds of butter in her baking show, Baking with Julia. And she always said, with enough butter, anything can be good. Here's some of her like 3 famous dishes. Beef, how do you say this?
Bourguignon.
That is like a French stew, braised and red wine beef stock, and you can add like whatever like vegetables or stuff you wanted. And she mainly used it for like cooking shows, because like everybody really enjoyed it. Chocolate mousse. This is one of her like family traditions, so she kind of like carried it on through her cooking shows. So it's like one of her signature dishes, or desserts, I don't know. Her roast chicken. She also used this mainly for showcases. And people really liked it because they always said it reminded them of their like childhood because of all the flavors she would add. So now Julia Child and her husband Paul, they met while they were working together for the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. And since Julia was like noticeably tall, she faced like a lot of challenges in finding a career and finding a partner due to like the social beauty standards of the time. But he didn't really care about that and looked past like all the expectations and only cared for her personality. So a bit later they got married on September 1st, 1946. This is him and her. Oh, wait, this is her and her husband, Paul. Julia died August 13th, 2004 at the age of 91. And then these are just some like extra pictures of her. This one she's kind of young, and then here's from her cooking shows. Yeah, that's it. She had a bunch of her own. So there's like Baking with Julia, there's the French chef, and then I think a couple more, but I don't remember. Oh, there's so many.
Was she French? Like, why did she like French cooking?
Her husband, Paul, got her into it because they moved. I can't remember where they moved.
He didn't.
What?
He just moved her there.
Oh, okay.
She had to find something to do.
So, yeah, and then she got bored, so she took a cooking class and she kind of like fell in love with it.
Oh, did she have any kids?
No, she didn't. She had like nephews that she was really close to, but she didn't end up with kids.
How old was her husband when he died?
I'm not sure.
What was the question?
How old was her husband?
He was 11 years old when she gave
Oh, no, like when he died. So I don't know.
Do you happen to know anyone who met Julia Child?
You. Yeah, my teacher met Julia Child. Yeah.
Say something about that.
She said that her personality was really fun, and that's like the first thing she noticed about her.
I'll just say,
Yeah.
I was catering an event, and Julia Child walked through all of these high mucky mucks and shishi people to the back of the kitchen to find me to ask me for my card, because she was an extremely kind and loving person. And she towered over me, but she was just such a sweet, sweet personality. So, yeah.
Did you watch the movie?
I did not
Are
watch
you
it.
gonna watch the movie?
I was going to, but I didn't end up, so I bet I will. Okay, thank you.
So, for those who do not know me, I am Benson. Shocker, right? And I'm actually genuinely terrified to see all you. But, so I did my project on Benjamin Franklin, and this is the book. Well, I'd say that I read some of it, but don't worry, I got all the information I need. So, okay. So Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1706, and he was born to a very large family, and they were pretty poor, but so apparently he was the 15th of 17 children. I ended up reading something from here. Apparently his father like married a couple of people and divorced him and stuff. So, well, anyways, his father was Josiah, by the way, and he was sent to grammar school for about 2 years. But since he had such a large family and too many mouths to feed, they had to stop sending him to grammar school because it cost way too much money. So on his own time, he would spend so after he wasn't able to be apprenticed, go to school, he was apprenticed in his father's workshop. And his father, he made candles and soap. So Benjamin Franklin, he helped make the candles and like cut the wicks and stuff. And so and he only made a little bit of money, but just enough so that he could buy some books to read them, and after he was like done reading the books, he'd sell them so they had more money to buy books. And so he was pretty self-educated, and he learned the basics of math and English and stuff. And then over time, he also, he developed hobbies. Like, he really liked to swim, and he learned some things about boats. Like, I don't know, maybe to like put up the sails or stuff, but he was pretty good at boats. But his father did not like this because he didn't like want him to like go out to sea and or maybe like drown or something like that. And so after a little while, Benjamin Franklin, he became more skilled with his printing, and eventually he became so good at it that they kind of started to like threaten other printers in town because of how good he was, and they could put him out of business. And so this scared his brother James, and this made his father join his side. So this ended up leading an end to his career at that printing shop. And so one day he decided that he was going to get on a boat to go to New York. So when he got to New York, he tried to seek employment. Oh wait, I can go to this one. Okay, so he tried to seek employment, but apparently he didn't acquire, like, he wasn't a high enough rank to become a helper to help him out in the printing shop. But he did say that one of his relatives, I can tell because of the other person's last name. So he said that that person was in Philadelphia, and that he had just lost one of his like secretary or whatever in printing, like one of the chief printers or whatever. And so by the picture, I guess that he did get a part-time job, maybe to like deliver some papers, but he did not stay a lot longer. And so he decided that he was going to go to Philadelphia. And so on his way, there was a bunch of storms, and he had to set out on foot a lot, and he was really hungry a lot of the time. And so when he finally got to Philadelphia, there was like this bakery, and there was like a lot of bread, and so he'd buy a lot of bread to eat it. And this person right here, that's actually his future wife, and she thought that he looked so hot eating his bread for some reason. So yeah, but apparently when he got to that printer shop that had lost their like chief printer, he had apparently already hired a new person, and so he kind of like told Ben all about the other printers in town. And apparently there was this one guy called Sir William Keith who tried to like hire him as a printer for him, but apparently Ben did not know that he was trying to like fill his head with like good ideas for like work. But good thing Ben did not choose him. So he kind of works here and there at various print shops. So this is him in a print shop working, and eventually he made just enough money to buy himself his own shop to work in. And later he made something, he published a very old looking book called Poor Richard's Almanac, which he kind of just did it for profit and stuff, and it just kind of told about weather forecasts and had like poems in it and like some of his own words of humor. So anyways, at this time the British was still in control, and Benjamin Franklin, he kind of got involved in a little bit of the politics, so he created the Pennsylvania Gazette. The snake thing, that's not the Pennsylvania Gazette, I'll tell you about, so a little bit later, but so the Pennsylvania Gazette was kind of like Poor Richard's Almanac, just it had more stuff to do on politics. And so this snake, you see all these initials, those are all the colonies, like, was Virginia one of them or something? So like here's Pennsylvania. I don't care to list all those because we did study the colonies, but I forgot the initials of, but it's okay.
What was that particular?
So this was apparently the first American cartoon. Now I wouldn't say it's a cartoon. I'd say it's more of a flip book because they didn't have TVs back then. So I guess it's just one of those. So and that meant that like all the different colonies can join together to fight against the British. But if we don't, we'll die because like it's a stronger nation if they go together. So oh yeah, and so even though Benjamin Franklin was interested in a lot of knowledge and stuff, he also created a lot of inventions, and he also got interested in like science and physics and stuff and mathematics. And so Benjamin Franklin, he had these two pairs of glasses. One helped him see further away and one helped him see closer because he was getting older and his eyesight was like kind of had stopped working. And so what he did was, you see the line right there? So the top lens is actually so the top lens is for seeing further away and the bottom lens is seeing more clearly. So what he did was he cut the lens in half of both of his glasses and put them together into his own glasses. By the way, they're called bifocal glasses, and this made it a lot easier for him to like see things. Oh yeah, and he also later invented the lightning rod, but before that happened, of course we all know about the kite thing, but I'm sure that a lot of you guys don't know how it works. So he had a metal rod at the top and there was a metal frame, and he had the like string, the rope, and so he sent it into the lightning storm and struck the kite, went down to the key, and then he sent the key down into this little jar thing to conserve it. And he later found out that lightning is actually electricity because at the time that was kind of a mystery. And so in doing so, he made the lightning rod to save people's lives. It's like a metal antenna. So instead of the lightning getting attracted to the building, it would strike the rod and then it would go down into the ground and stay there so that no one would get hurt from it. And eventually, he tried to electrocute a turkey and kill it and then serve it as dinner for like some special guests or whatever. Now I did read two sources. One said that he did kill the turkey with electricity and ate it, and then the other said that in doing so he accidentally knocked himself out and the turkey didn't die and then just walked away. So I'm not sure which one it is, but it's either one. So yeah, and this is the turkey right here and electricity in the background. And then the next one was the glass harmonica. It wasn't exactly super useful, but it did act as an instrument. So apparently if you like rub wine glasses in a certain way, then they can make sound. And so what he decided to do is he made the glass harmonica where there's a bunch of like glass discs spinning or bowls, and what they do was they'd get their fingers wet and then touch it, and each one they touched it would play a different note. It wasn't super useful, but still it showed off his talent. And then there was this other one called the Franklin furnace. I did not include it because I was kind of rushing to get this done. But so the Franklin furnace was a metal stove. So before I get more into that, fireplaces. So he'd look at fireplaces, and if there's a fireplace in front of you, you can feel it. But if you step a couple steps away, you don't feel any more heat, unless if it's a large fire. So what he decided to do is he decided to make it out of metal so that it would radiate through the room a lot better. And a lot of log cabins use it, and it's a very common thing nowadays. Okay, and then this is a quote that he had. I just kind of like searched for an image with his quote on it. It's kind of like pixelated, but I can read it. So that as we enjoy great advantages from the inventions of others, we should be glad of an opportunity to serve others by any invention of ours, and this we should do freely and generously. So what he did was he took all of his plans for all of his inventions and he gave them away generously to help other people. So he was a very generous and kind-hearted man. And then, so about the Pennsylvania Gazette, it had all the political things in it. Later, since he kind of got more into the political stuff, he got elected as a delegate. He was pretty famous at the time, so they decided that it would be a good idea to elect him as a delegate for the colonies. And so this was around the Revolutionary War. This was after the Boston Tea Party had happened and the king had rejected Ben coming. Well, I mean, he did come, but the king didn't listen, so this is the writing of the Declaration of Independence. And later he went to France to get more help and support for the war, so that they could win, and so that someone could say something, so that they could have more freedom. And apparently he liked it so much there that he stayed there for a couple years. And then years later, after they had won the war, and then here is Benjamin Franklin visiting Louis XVI, who is the King of France, and and I'm not sure which one's Ben, but I'm guessing that this one's Ben, and they're trying to persuade King Louis to help them, support them more, and not Great Britain. Okay, so later, after that, after many years after the war ended, Ben died of, before he died, he continued in his position and stuff, and then Ben died of pleurisy, right? Okay, and it's an inflammation of the lungs, and he died at age 84. And that is the last. Yes, you got there.
When did he marry Lady attracted to him eating bread?
Oh yeah. So I'm not exactly sure, but he did marry her when he was still in his printing business. Oh yeah, by the way, her name was Dorothy Reed, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Did he ever have any kids?
I am not actually sure. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure how many though.
I think it's him.
Okay. And yes, Lennox?
What was his favorite food?
Probably that bread.
The bread.
I'm not sure if I'm seeing hands back there or stretches. Does anyone have any more questions?
Okay, so for my biography, I decided to do Jane Austen. She is, well, here's some portraits of her. So this is when she was 13. And I'm guessing she was mid to late 30s here. Apparently, according to her brother, this is not actually an accurate description of her. I think he thought she was prettier than that, because that's not the most complimentary photo. But there were very few photos of her, so I think those were some of the only two. So Jane Austen is a really famous author. You've probably heard of her. She was born in 1775 in Steventon, England. She had one sister named Cassandra, but she was one of 8 children, and she was the 7th child, so she was like the baby, except there was one more. His name was Charles. Her father was the Reverend Austen, and he actually owned a boarding school. So it was a boarding school for boys, so she was really surrounded by boys. And so that's one of the reasons she was used to like rougher language. And I don't know if you know about any of her, like the heroines of her stories. They're not super like feminine. They do stitching and stuff. A lot of them like horse riding or going on really long walks around the countryside. So that was like kind of a corresponding theme in her stories. So she lived, actually she always lived with her parents, and she lived in Steventon for most of her, well actually, so she lived there a long time. Then her father died and she moved to Chawton Cottage, which I don't think was that far away, and she lived there for the rest of her life. And that's where she wrote most of her books, including Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Mansfield Park, Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, and Love and Friendship. A few of those she wrote at her home in Steventon, so she wrote Sense and Sensibility at her home, and Love and Friendship is not really one of her most popular books, but she wrote it when she was a teenager, which is pretty impressive. So she really liked doing like boys' activities. She really liked running and like playing in the snow, so she did a lot of games like that with her brothers and their friends. She went to boarding school at Oxford with her sister, but they caught typhus, and it was a really bad case, and so she immediately, as soon as she got better, she was returned home. And actually it was during her teenage years that she began writing stories, and she would read them aloud to her parents at night and her family, and I think they found them really entertaining. So when she was 20, she wrote Sense and Sensibility, and then like a year later she wrote Pride and Prejudice. So she offered Pride and Prejudice to a publisher, but the publisher said no, which is pretty much proof that people did not realize how much potential she had, because if that publisher had said yes, he probably would have made a lot of money, but he didn't think her books were good enough. I don't even think he read them. But so that is her home in Steventon, and that's her home, that's Chawton Cottage. So I'm pretty sure you can actually still go and visit there, and I think they have some of her stuff on display. So The Scandal of Susan, she sold one of her books, Susan, to a publisher for a grand £10, which at the time was actually worth quite a lot. But like she was waiting for the book to get published and waiting for it, and it just never got published, and she was really confused. And she went and asked him, and he was not gonna publish it. He bought it, but I don't think he ever really wanted to publish it. And so later her brother helped her buy it back, and she later did sell it to a different publisher, and it was published, but no one knows exactly why he didn't publish it, but I think a lot of people think that the publisher did not think that she was good enough being a woman. The most loved books are Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, and Mansfield Park. I made a little bit of like a few slides on what they're about. So this is Pride and Prejudice. So the main character is Elizabeth Bennet, and that's Mr. Darcy. That's also Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. Those are 2 different movies. So Elizabeth Bennet is really proud. She loves going around the countryside and reading good books, and she meets Mr. Darcy, who comes to visit, and he has a really strong prejudice against people of the lesser society. He doesn't think she's good enough, but he still falls for her. So it's kind of about their love story. This is Sense and Sensibility, about 2 sisters, Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood. And Eleanor is like really sensible and smart, and she falls for a great guy. And Marianne thinks she's found like this great match with the scoundrel Willoughby, but he just leaves her, and she gets like really heartbroken. And this is the guy who she ends up with, who's really nice and has always loved her. That's really sweet. There's always kind of like a scoundrel who is in like the Jane Austen books. So that's kind of another reoccurring theme that she has. This is Emma. So she's really pretty, she's rich, she's got it all, but she doesn't want to get married. She likes to marry other people off. And so some fun facts about Jane Austen. She's on the 10-pound note in England. So she never got married, actually. It's just really funny because she wrote all these romance novels, but she never got married. She allegedly fell in love with someone. It's not positive, but supposedly she fell in love with someone at the seaside, but later found out she was written a letter that he had died. And the second one was she accepted a proposal of marriage. It was by Harris Bakesweather, but she accepted, and then she woke up the next morning and was like, "What have I done?" And so she embarrassed him in front of everyone and said no. So that was pretty rough. Not her most feeling moment. She published her books anonymously, so Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, and Mansfield Park all got published in her lifetime, but she did not, I think Persuasion did too actually, but she didn't publish them under her name because she didn't want a lot of people to know that she did it. It was known that it was by a woman, but only her closest family knew. It was published just by a lady, and then Pride and Prejudice was published by the author of Sense and Sensibility. So people knew that someone was writing all these books, but they didn't know who. Her books got really popular, so they did actually get popular in her lifetime. Sir Walter Scott really liked her books, and King George IV really liked her books. She didn't like him, but he liked her books. The cause of her death was never discovered. She died at age 41. Her sister, who really loved her, they were really close. Her sister took her to a lot of places trying to find a cure for her, but it didn't work, and so yeah, she ended up dying. So she really loved her sister, as I just mentioned, which is something that you can really see in Pride and Prejudice. This is Elizabeth Bennet and her sister Jane Bennet, and they like to giggle in bed and stuff, so it was they were really close too. These are some pretty images from the book. This is from Pride and Prejudice, and this is from Emma. I don't know what that is from. I wrote, it's my bibliography, I read The Real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things, and I don't need to tell you about that stuff. And this is the drawing I did, which is not my favorite because I kind of accidentally made her look Asian, but that was not the intent. This is her when she's 13. Yeah, that's it.
What did she die from?
Oh, it was never discovered. Oh, I think a lot of people said it was, actually, I don't know. It was just this unknown disease that killed her. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know any of her other siblings' names?
Yes. So her sister was Cassandra. She had a younger brother named Charles. She had a brother also named George, but he had a mental disability, and so he didn't live with the family. She had a brother named Thomas, who was adopted by a richer family, the Knights. Yeah, I think that's all I remember. 2 of her brothers went into the Navy, I think, yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch any of the movies?
Yes, I've watched 5 of the movies. I've watched a few different versions of each one. The only one I haven't watched is Northanger Abbey. Oh, and she wrote Sanditon, but was never actually, she died before it was finished, so it is published. It was published 100 years later when it was found, but there's the first 12 chapters, and I think they just made a series of it on Netflix. Yeah, Grayson?
What made you choose her?
I thought it would just be interesting to do, and Miss Buckland had a book about her, which is not actually the one I ended up reading, but so it was kind of just one. Yeah, Sylvia?
What's your favorite one of her stories or movies?
I really love Pride and Prejudice. I really like the BBC version. It's really good. You should watch it. Yeah.
So she published her books anonymously first, but we all know who she is and which books are hers. So when and how did that happen?
She did publish her books anonymously, but it was known that this anonymous author wrote each of her books, so it was listed there. But I think it was either towards the end of her life or after her death that people actually found out who wrote the books. So, yeah.
Do you identify with any of her characters?
I really like Elizabeth Bennet. I feel like we like some of the same stuff. We like reading books and yeah, so okay. Thank you.
The book I read is just called Florence Nightingale, and then I drew a picture of her, and yeah. Anyway, Florence Nightingale presented by me. She was a pioneering statistician and nurse known as the Lady with the Lamp, most famous for her work during the Crimean War, saving hundreds of lives at the Scutari Hospital. Not only did she save more than thousands of lives across the world by simply introducing regular sanitation, but also established the first nursing school and created a new path for women to enter the workforce. And that picture is the one that I drew, and there's like a painting of her. And then, yeah. When and where was she born? She was born in 1820, May 12th, named after Florence, Italy, the city where she was born. Florence Nightingale was born into a fairly wealthy and privileged family in 1820, second child and youngest, having a single older sister, Parthenope. And then that picture in the corner and that's Florence, Italy, a few pictures. Florence's family. Her father, William Nightingale, and then that's a picture of him. And then she has a mother, Frances Smith, also known as Fanny. And then her sister, Frances Parthenope Verney, also known as just Parthenope. Her home life. They spent the first 10 years of their childhood in Derbyshire, growing up in Lea Hurst, an estate their father inherited from his great-uncle, a Gothic-style small country house with 13 bedrooms standing on a little over 19 acres of landscaped gardens and parkland. But due to the winter Well, that's a picture of their house. It's got like vines and stuff growing out of it, very planty. And, winter became really unbearable. And so in 1825, they purchased and moved into a new estate in Hampshire, Embley Park, keeping Lea Hurst for a summer house. This second home was an 80-bedroom manor, mainly Elizabethan style with Gothic windows and lodges, standing on 130 acres of parkland with many formal gardens and woodland. So she was pretty wealthy, and that's the second house. She had a lot of really good education. One of Florence's many privileges was high level of education. Her father truly believed that women should be educated despite the modern standards that all women should be is pretty. So he took that duty upon himself regardless by teaching his daughters as much as he knew. Languages, mathematics, social skills, philosophy, and literature were all a big part of Florence Nightingale's studies. She excelled academically and developed a very sharp intellect. And Florence had always particularly enjoyed reading, gaining the nickname bookworm from her sister. And yeah. Florence had always felt the need to help others. She yearned for nursing even from when she was very young. At the age of 9, she kept a written record of her family members' symptoms whenever they were sick, recreating the experiences with her 13 dolls. Like when she had whooping cough, so did all of her dolls, and she covered their necks with pieces of flannel to keep them warm. Florence loved each and every one of her dolls tremendously, treating them with the utmost care possible, randomly proclaiming them very ill, putting them to bed, and nursing them back to health. This little hobby eventually turned to nursing real people in her own home. If anyone grew sick in the estate, Florence would be there by their bedside for hours on end, finding new ways of nursing that were unthought of before. And there's a few pictures of dolls that I just kind of randomly put in there. Her calling.
In 1837, at age 17, Florence Nightingale experienced what she believed was a divine calling from God to serve others, and it became the beginning of her lifelong dedication to nursing. Despite her wealthy family's strong opposition to her pursuing such an unladylike profession, she turned down at least 2 marriage proposals to fully focus on her work and future. It was this year that set her on a path to defy social norms, educate herself in healthcare, and ultimately establish nursing as a respected profession. Driven by her deep religious faith and her mathematical skills, she was able to create and perform sanitation and patient care. School and training. In 1851, Florence Nightingale spent about 7 months at the Kaiserwerth Hospital in Germany, where she learned proper hospital organization and patient care, laying the foundation for her modern nursing principles, despite nursing being a lowly profession at the time in England, especially for women, setting her on the path to become the named Lady with the Lamp during the Crimean War. She published her first work, The Institution of the Kaiserwerth on the Rhine, detailing her experiences and marking her entry into nursing literature. During the Crimean War, starting from 1854 to 1856, Florence Nightingale transformed nursing by leading a team of nurses to the filthy Scutari Hospital, drastically cutting death rates through sanitation, hygiene, and improved care, earning the nickname Lady with the Lamp from checking on all the patients in the night with a paper lantern, laying the groundwork for modern nursing and hospital statistics through her data-driven reforms. The first modern nursing schools. In 1860, Florence Nightingale founded the first modern nursing school, the Nightingale Training School for Nurses at St. Thomas's Hospital in London, using funds raised after the Crimean War to professionalize nursing by establishing high standards for training, cleanliness, and education, while also publishing her influential book, Notes on Nursing, solidifying her role as the founder of modern nursing and a pioneer in sanitation and statistical refinement. There we go. Anyway, her final moments and death. In May 1910, she received the Norwegian Red Cross badge, a recognition for her enduring impact. She died unexpectedly at her London home on August 13, 1910, at the age of 90, following a short illness. True to her wishes, her funeral was a modest affair. She was honored with memorial services and burial in Westminster Abbey. Even before her death, her name symbolized care, bravery, and the establishment of nursing as a respected profession. Legacy. Her work on sanitation, data, and patient care transformed healthcare, leading to the creation of the Florence Nightingale Medal in 1912 and influencing global health standards. And then that's the end. That's the end.
Can you say a little bit about how she was sidelined and how she suddenly became famous? How is it that she was sort of brushed aside formerly, and then how
when she first started working at hospitals after she had trained at some schools, the other doctors didn't take her very seriously because she was a woman, and it was like in the 1800s, so women weren't very respected, and she was kind of like brushed aside, but she kept on pushing, and she kept on, taking great care of the patients, and she was the one that the patients remembered because she kept on checking in
on all of the patients in the night and making sure that they were, still alive. And she
So it was
got
the
more popular.
patient's memory that actually made her famous, yeah.
Yeah.
Did she ever get married?
No. She never got married so that she could focus on her work, and she never had any kids. She pushed aside everything so that she could be a nurse. Yeah?
Did I know what sickness that she died from?
I'm not sure actually. I heard that she had like severe depression and she just kind of like passed away suddenly. She was bedridden at one point because of severe depression and then just passed away at one point.
But she was in her 90s.
Yeah, she was in her 90s, so.
Bravo.
So obviously, my name's Azelia, if you couldn't already tell. I picked Jane Goodall as my biography, and I read most all of this book. Jane Goodall was born April 3rd, 1934, Hampton, London, United Kingdom. Her father was in the military, so she grew up mostly around her mother Van, and her younger sister, Judy. Jane was about 5 years old when she and her mother, Jane, family moved to Bournemouth, right? Bournemouth, England, where she attended Upland School, an independent school near Poole, for some of her early education, where she developed her love for animals. Jane was about 23 when she attended University of Cambridge, 1965, where she earned her PhD in ethology, notably as one of the few candidates admitted without a bachelor's degree. Studying at Newham College and later studying at Durrell College, focusing on chimpanzee behavior in Gombe. Jane and her mother, in 1986, they traveled to the shores of Gombe Stream Chimpanzee Reserve in western Tanzania. In that same year, Jane, now known as Dr. Jane Goodall, made the observation of chimps eating a bush pig. Prior to this discovery, chimpanzees had been assumed to be vegetarians. During her research, Jane also observed the hunting processes. A group of chimpanzees attacked, killed, and ate a red Columbus monkey that climbed up high into a tree. In 1963, National Geographic decided to publish the front cover story about Jane and her research. The cover page was called My Life Among the Wild Chimpanzees, which brought Jane and her chimpanzees in the homes of millions. Not long after, in 1965, there was a premiere of the first film about Jane and her research, Miss Jane Goodall and the Wild Chimpanzees. Throughout Jane's life, she made many discoveries. The beginning of what's called the 4-Year War, where she found that there is cannibalism amongst the Gombe chimpanzees, where a mother chimp and her daughter chimp would steal and kill babies of chimps from her own community. In 1977, Jane created her nameless organization to continue her chimpanzee research, as well as expanded efforts to chimpanzee protection, conservation, and environment education. In 1986, Jane attended the first Understanding Chimpanzees conference in Chicago. This shifted her focus from observing and researching to a broader, holistic animal-human conservation approach. Roots and Shoots. In 1991, Roots and Shoots was founded. Jane worked with groups of students from Tanzania to discuss ways that young people can do to make the world better. It was made and put the power to create practical solutions to large problems in the hands of the young ones. New chimpanzee sanctuary. The Jane Goodall Institution Chimpanzee Sanctuary was founded in 1992. It was made and provided homes and care for chimpanzees who are orphaned. They now care for more than 150 chimps. Messenger of Peace. The sanctuary in 2004, General Kofi Annan? Kofi Annan? I don't know how to pronounce it, but gave Jane Goodall the highest honor of the U.S. for the work to create a more peaceful world throughout roots and shoots. National World Chimpanzee Day. The first World Chimpanzee Day was in 2018. Jane Goodall and a few other organizations worked together to create a day to bring attention to the care of protection of chimpanzees. Jane launched her Hopecast in 2020 to further connect with audiences worldwide. It is podcasted filled with inspirational words and meaningful content. In 2021, the Book of Hope was published. The world celebrated the 91st birthday as her last. Jane Goodall died on October 1st, 2025, at the age of 91 when she died in her sleep. Happened to be the day after I picked her for my biography. I swear I did not kill her. Before she left the world, she left us with a quote. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. She also got married once. I can't remember the time, but I think it was 1962. Then she got divorced, and in 1983, I believe, she married another man and had a son named Hugh. The end.
Yes, show a picture.
Okay, and then a picture of Jane Goodall.
Beautiful.
That's a great picture.
Any questions? Okay.
What day is the National Chimpanzee Day?
I did actually not research that, but I will let you know if I do. Any other questions? No. Oh. Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't kill her?
There's no evidence. There's no evidence. Probably.
Are you sure?
Oh, yes, Benson.
What do you think was the most surprising discovery that Jane Goodall made?
Probably, I mean, most people didn't really understand what she was studying because they didn't really know about all the chimpanzees and stuff. So probably that, like, first of all, they were cannibals. Second of all, they could make tools by themselves. And, like, they were smarter than everybody else thought they were. Yes?
What kind of tools did you see them make?
Huh?
What kind of tools did you see them make? Like,
oh, tools?
Like a
Well,
stick with ants or...
they made, like, you know those pickaxes or things that people mine out of stones? Well, they kind of made that to get all the insects out of the ground to eat. So, okay.
My name is Baiya. I did Gerald, Durrell, and I read this book.
Which is titled?
My Families and Other Animals. Gerald Durrell's family. Gerald Durrell was the youngest, born January 7, 1925, in India. He had two older brothers, Lawrence, or you could call him Larry, and Leslie, and his sister Margot. His parents were Louis Florence Durrell and Lawrence Samuel Durrell, who died when Gerald was 3. After Gerald's dad died, they moved to the United Kingdoms. They lived there for about 3 years, and then Larry came and said that the family needs more sunshine,
and that they should move to Corfu. Their mother disagreed, but they ended up moving to Corfu anyway. They lived there for about 4 to 5 years, and then they moved to England. When Gerald was in Corfu, he explored the islands of Corfu, doing lots of research on animals and collecting them while making friends on the way. In Corfu, Gerald made many friends, humans and animals. He brought most of his pets with him when he left, but he had to leave a few of them behind with Spiro, who was a friend who they met when they first got there, who helped them out with everything. That's the house that they lived in. In 1939, the Durrell family was forced out of Corfu because of upcoming war, so the family moved back to England. During World War II, Gerald worked in pet shops for a brief time before he was called up for military service in 1947. Because of medical expansions, he served the war effort by working at a farm. After the war in 1945, he worked as a student keeper at Whitsnap Zoo, looking after large animals and observing them. In 1946, Gerald got a 30-pound inheritance from his father's death and decided to use it on bringing exotic animals back to England to share with others, realizing the need for conservation. His first expedition from 1947 to 1950s, he began his famed collecting trips. 1947 to 1959, Gerald Durrell had his first major wildlife collection expedition to British Camerons. He went with zoologist John Yielden, 1947 to 48, and later with zookeeper Ken Smith to 1949, capturing a bunch of different animals like I have no clue how to say Anguantibos. I don't exactly know how to say the name of that animal, but he captured it. Galgos and frogs for British zoos, becoming friends with Fawn of Bethlet and writing these adventures in his first successful book, The Overload Arc, creating his first writing conservation career. 1950, he went to British Guiana, and 1953 to 1954 to Argentina and Paraguay, collecting a lot of different animals for zoos. His most famous work. Between 1954 and 1959, Gerald Durrell wrote My Family and Other Animals, the book that I read. In 1956, he wrote The Drunken Forest, taking a key in his expeditions to Cameroon for his future zoo. He also made his first films for the BBC, and laying for groundwork to found Jersey Zoo, opening in 1959, a life-changing conservation center, transitioning him from animal collector to a major conservationist and author. Gerald's brother Larry also became a phenomenal author too. Gerald got married in January 26, 1951 to, I have no clue how to say her name. Jacqueline? I don't know. Wolfenden. They got divorced though. Then he got married again to Lee George, I don't know, in 1979. It was a long and happy marriage until his death in 1955. Before he died, he had complications following a liver transplant, having battled liver cancer and cirrhosis with cirrhosis with sepsis, often cited as the final cause. His body rejected the new organ when he got a transplant. And this is a famous quote that he made. "The world is as delicate and as complicated as a spider's web. But we're not just touching the web, we're tearing great holes in it." And then the end.
How many times did you burst out laughing reading My Family and Other Animals?
A lot. You can ask my classmates. A lot.
So it was a good read? It was a fun read?
Yeah, it was a fun read. Benson.
What was the best story?
The best story probably when he captured a mother scorpion with its baby scorpions on its back and put it in a old lighter box.
Matchbox.
Or matchbox. And then his brother Larry grabbed a matchbox from a safe place when they were going to get lunch in their backyard patio thing. And their family was talking and he was gonna light a cigarette and he opened up the box. There was a scorpion in it with babies. So, and it was crazy. He dropped it and the family freaked out. Chrissie.
What made you choose to do him?
I wanted to do someone with a bunch of animals because I really like animals. And Miss Buckland said that he was a good person to do.
Did he ever have any kids?
No.
No. Why did you choose the clapping cat at the end?
The clapping cat at the end because of Emmy.
Because of who?
Emmy.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I did my presentation on Amelia Earhart, and I read 3 books for this, but 2 of them were really boring, so I asked Miss Buckland, my teacher, for a different one, but the one that I picked was this, and it was a really good read. It was actually really informational, and it was fun, and Amelia Earhart wrote it, so. Amelia Earhart did not enter the world quietly. She arrived in Atchison, Kansas in the summer of 1897, a tiny baby who would someday stare down the entire sky as if it were an open playground. As a child, she was the type who climbed trees faster than most boys in the neighborhood, the type who built ramps out of scrap wood so she could roll down in a box and pretend she was flying. Her parents hoped she would grow out of it. She did not. Amelia grew up moving between different towns because her father struggled with keeping steady work. While that created a lot of stress for the family, Amelia treated every new place like a fresh map to explore. She collected exciting stories the same way other kids would collect dolls. She kept a scrapbook filled with newspaper clippings about women who did unexpected things. Women who became doctors, women who climbed mountains, women who refused to act the way people expected. Amelia looked at every one of those stories and thought, yes, I want that kind of life. When she finished high school, she drifted through a few different paths. She studied nursing. She worked as a photographer assistant. She moved to Toronto for a while and helped wounded soldiers returning from World War I. She was brave around blood and chaos in a way that surprised even her. But none of those things became her forever path. That moment arrived on a chilly December day in 1920 when she visited an airfield in California. A pilot offered to take her up on a 10-minute flight. The plane lifted from the ground. The wind blew in her face. The world dropped away, and Amelia stepped out of that plane knowing her life had just snapped into focus. She said later that the moment her feet touched the ground again, she knew she had to fly. From then on, she was unstoppable. Amelia worked every job she could get just to pay for flying lessons. She drove a truck. She worked at a telephone company. She saved every spare dollar. When she finally found an instructor she liked, the legendary Anita Snook, she threw herself into training. Snook said Amelia was quiet but determined. She watched her student climb into the cockpit with an expression that said, "I belong here." Amelia's first plane was a bright yellow second-hand Kinner Erster that she lovingly called the Canary. It was small, loud, and occasionally stubborn, but Amelia adored it. She used that plane to set her first record when she reached 14,000 feet, which was the highest altitude a woman pilot had ever reached at the time. Amelia was not trying to impress anyone. She just wanted to see how high she could go. Her growing fame caught the attention of publishers, reporters, and eventually a group of wealthy promoters who wanted a woman on a transatlantic flight. They were not originally planning for her to pilot the plane, but they just wanted a female symbol for publicity. But Amelia agreed to the risky journey because she believed even being a part of it could move women forward. In 1928, she flew across the Atlantic as a passenger. When she returned home, she was greeted with cheering crowds and was suddenly famous. She didn't brag about it. Instead, she joked that she felt like a sack of potatoes who happened to be carried across the ocean. She promised the public that one day she would make the flight again, but next time she would be the one in control. While her name rose, she also got to know George Putnam, a publisher who helped organize her projects and eventually became her husband. Their relationship was not traditional for the time. Amelia made it clear that she wanted a marriage built on respect and independence. She would pursue her adventures. She would keep her identity. George agreed, which was rare for men at that era. Their marriage was full of teamwork rather than restriction. In 1932, Amelia decided it was time. She prepared her red Lockheed Vega and launched herself into the sky from Newfoundland, determined to cross the Atlantic alone. It was a rough flight. Storms battered her plane. Ice formed on its wings. Her plane's engine sputtered at points. The cabin was freezing. She could hardly feel her hands. But she pushed forward mile after mile until she landed in a field in Ireland. A farmer walked up confused and asked where she had come from. Amelia simply said, "America." That moment made her the first woman in history to fly across the Atlantic by herself. She became a global icon overnight. After that triumph, Amelia kept going. She set more altitude records. She broke speed records. She visited schools and encouraged young girls to chase whatever dream they had. She taught at Purdue University. She fought for women in aviation and helped start an organization called the 99s, which still exists today. Everywhere she went, she tried to lift others with her. Her biggest dream, however, was a flight around the entire world. Not just any route. She wanted the longest possible one, hugging the equator. She teamed up with navigator Fred Noonan and prepared a sleek twin-engine Lockheed Electra for the journey. Their first attempt fell apart because the plane was damaged during a takeoff accident. Amelia didn't give up. She reorganized, regained her confidence, and tried again. In June of 1937, Amelia and Noonan lifted off from Miami and began the long journey. They flew through South America, then across Africa, then over the vast stretches of Asia and Australia. It was the most ambitious flight she had ever attempted. Crowds gathered everywhere they landed. People were thrilled to meet the famous woman who had pushed so many boundaries. Amelia stayed cheerful and focused. She was exhausted, but excited to complete the dream that had been building for years. By early July, they reached Lae, Papua New Guinea. Only the toughest part remained, the long stretch over the Pacific toward a tiny island called Howland. The island was barely big enough to spot from the sky, which meant the flight required perfect navigation. Amelia Noonan took off into the morning light. Radio messages from her plane came through for hours. Some were clear, others were faint. She reported cloudy weather and difficulty seeing the island. The last radio message signaled they were running low on fuel. After that, silence. The world froze. Search crews scoured the ocean for weeks and found nothing. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had not shown up. Their disappearance became one of the greatest mysteries in history. People invented theories for decades. The most popular theory was that she crashed on the island of Nicomararo and was eaten by coconut crabs, which is that. But the truth remains that somewhere in the Pacific, the brave flyer who had inspired millions vanished. And they got their name coconut crabs because they crack open coconuts with their claws. Although her final flight ended in tragedy, her legacy has only grown stronger. Amelia Earhart became more than a pilot. She became a symbol of courage for people across the world. She proved that a woman could break records, lead movements, inspire a generation, and open the sky to everyone who came after. Kids in school learn her name. Pilots speak of her with respect. Adventurers look to her as a reminder that bold dreams are worth chasing. Her story isn't just about how she disappeared. It's about how she lived. She lived with excitement. She lived with curiosity. She lived with a belief that the world is a place to explore. Amelia Earhart didn't let fear write her story. She wrote it herself, and she wrote it for everyone who ever felt the need to fly. The end.
You chose Amelia Earhart.
Oh, well, Amelia Earhart is my second cousin, twice removed. And also because she was the first person I thought of. Benson?
So how did she get where did she get the red plane that she flew?
She saved up a lot of money for it, and from her previous flights, she had enough. Because her fame was kind of growing to the point where she would be like getting in money, so people lended her money too, but she was wealthy enough to get it. Wyatt?
I just want to say that last year at my other school, I'd have people would do a performance in the gym, and yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you have a theory of what happened to her? Did you come to a conclusion?
I think she got eaten by coconut crabs.
I think she landed in the ocean.
Yeah, I think she definitely crashed. Yeah.
You know, if she was bothered, Bermuda Triangle.
I don't think so. She was flying over it's in the middle of the Pacific, so I don't know. But I don't think so. Yeah.
Have anyone found the plane?
They did not find the plane. They think that they found some parts of the plane, but the plane hasn't been fully located though. Nobody really knows. Yeah.
Wait, who was she flying with again?
Fred Noonan, her instructor. Yeah.
How big are coconut crabs?
They are as big as this desk. They're super big. And I didn't get a picture for reference, but there is a picture of a trash can and a coconut crab climbing on it, and it's as big as the trash can. Yeah.
When I was like 8, I was like all obsessed with crabs, and I was enjoying crabs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what happened to her husband after she died?
Her husband, I don't know what happened to him, but
Putnam and Mason is a huge publishing house. He became a very famous publisher.
yeah, he's a really famous publisher, so he had a pretty good life after London.
I believe they found like a bottle of her lotion. They believe to be hers or pimple cream because they've seen pictures of her using the exact same brand, and they found one in the ocean on an island.
Yeah, they found like some traces that she actually landed on Nicomararo, but then she didn't have enough food and in the end died.
Oh.
Yeah.
Does I know her parents' name?
What?
Does I know her parents' name?
Parents' name.
Oh, her parents' name? You know, the book that I read didn't talk too much about her parents because she lived with her grandma mostly. Her parents kind of sent her away to Kentucky to live with her grandparents. So they weren't referenced too much. They weren't like a big aspect of her life. Yeah.
Did she have any kids?
She did not have any kids, but her brother, Edwin Earhart, did have, I believe, 2 kids.